Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. A very exciting and big Thursday today as I wake up in the early morning hours in Helsinki, Finland. Plenty to talk about as I want to follow up from the short-term time frame analysis yesterday, and also a few announcements before we get into it as well. Did a big interview with my good friend Elliot from Elio Trades yesterday, and that is now live. And what else? Oh yes, the Discord, of course. Okay, I need to explain this again. This is great. I see this all day. It's great. Anyways, if you want to join the Discord, anyone can join the Discord. It's all good. It's free. It's open. It's public. And all you have to do is click the link below in the description. However, there is one big different thing about our Discord that's different than any other Discord that you're probably familiar with. And that is the fact that once you join in the Discord, you're going to be given 10 minutes of playtime. No, just 10 minutes to respond to a direct message or a private message, whatever you want to call it, at the top left of your Discord handle, and that's going to be sent to you by our security bot called Altdenifier, ALTDEINTIFIER. Maybe I got that right, I think. Anyways, more importantly, on to the point there, once you're actually given that DM, just follow the link in there. It's going to allow you to verify yourself through some, social media venue, and then you're more than welcome to join on in. You'll be granted full access to the public Discord, and all good. And like I said, anyone's welcome to join. We just have a few rules. Basically, be like a normal human being. Be civil and respectful in your disagreements. But of course, we don't expect everyone to get along. We don't expect everyone to agree with each other. That would be weird if that did happen, of course, but we do expect civility, and we will kick and or ban you if it's just weird, if it's like if your way of communicating is like, you're stupid, you're dumb and retarded and you should die. It's like, okay, this is just I don't know how to deal with this. Anyways, let's put the focus over here on the Krown Chain application, which we found at app.krownchain.net. And what do we see? We do see open interest actually headed up another about 150 million from yesterday to today. I believe we were looking at about 2.45 billion, and that is coming alongside of a break actually in the top side of the range on the very short-term time frames, to be fair, although I would, to spoil the surprise, I'm essentially looking for continuation here today. However, that was just people adding positions, getting ready for the actual move itself. And I'd even argue that the move is already, the break has already happened, which we'll talk about soon enough. So that would essentially suggest that the breakout is real. Looking at Bitcoin dominance, what do we see? Coming up a little bit actually from yesterday to today, back up around that 64 and some odd percent region, kind of also in between 64 even and 64.5 right now, kind of a little bit in the middle of that area, of which essentially playing within our narrative that whenever Bitcoin's moving, whenever Bitcoin's either breaking out or breaking down, don't care if it's going up or down, essentially not going to be too good for the altcoins. And the last I guess it was like the last 4 or 5 days, going back to the 6th of November, so actually the last week or so, where Bitcoin's been more or less sideways, that has been the time to actually look for alts, put in a little bit of a relief rally there. But I think that time is slowly coming to an end, and it's once again Bitcoin time relatively soon. Looking at fear and greed index also popping up 1 point from an 86 to an 87, not bad. Let's go check out these fucking Blue Jays in the coal mine over here. Let's see what these goddamn birds have to say today. And this is very interesting, actually. This is very, very interesting. The futures premium over spot price section has been completely dissipated right there. Very interesting, especially happening not even like 2 weeks into this month right now. So it's certainly not due to the fact that we're coming into parity on on the monthly closure for expiration. But that actually is a little bit of a canary right there. However, I want to see price action first and foremost before we get a little bit more gung-ho with something like that. Looking at funny rate as well, what do we see? We see pretty much everyone or all of the big exchanges still hanging out around 0.01%. We do see FTX is a bit of an outlier at 0.06%. Not anything too crazy. Again, still well below the threshold of 0.1 where I do see, or where we typically see, major highs being put in. But for right now, it's starting to creep up there. We have seen it essentially trend in that direction, but still some ways to go. Anyways, with that in mind, let's go over here to the actual price action charts themselves, and let's follow up from yesterday. So yesterday we actually did see a 4-hour delta closure above 15,800-ish region. I look at this as more or less a formality. While Bitcoin did come back down and test our more intermediate support right here, right around the 15,450-ish region, which we did mark off yesterday, I do look at this as still likely to actually break onto the upside. So fair enough. With that in mind, what would I be looking for further continuation? Essentially the same thing as yesterday. 2-hour, 4-hour delta closure above 15.8, and my general general disposition right now, because we already essentially saw that yesterday, is that I'm biased in that direction, that it's essentially just going to float its way onwards and upwards there, as long as Bitcoin is especially above this median right here at about 15.4 region, we'll call it, or 15.450, depending upon how exact you want to be. So as long as that condition is met, I'm essentially just looking for it to trade a little bit more sideways and give another try to the upside, and still same targets to the upside as well. Of course, we got the 2-spot extension hanging out all the way around just under 17,000 bucks actually, and we do have a nice measure move on this formation as well, which I believe is coming in a little bit less than that, somewhere around here, somewhere around that 16,700 ish region. So anywhere in the upper $16,000 region is kind of where this would typically hit, granted that signal. But there is a classic, there's a very classic kind of trappy trap area, and it's right here at the 1.414. So I want to reiterate that while I am short-term bullish and I am looking for this move likely to happen here, I do think that this next area is fraught with peril. It's very caution-ish, if you want to call it that. Does that even make sense? It's very cautious. I'd be very cautious within this region, what I'm trying to say, as I do believe that Bitcoin is likely to be playing out one of those greater pullbacks and consolidations downwards relatively soon. Whether it happens from this historical area, which by the way is not just lining up with the 2-spot extension, it's not also lining up with just the measure move right there as well, but also it's just your major massive trap that we had in January 2018 as well. I mean, this was the big one right here, so to speak, as well. The reason being because it was the first time that Bitcoin put in a lower high on a weekly, thus confirming reversal of trend, right? And not only that, but price action was pretty damn brutal right after that as well, shaving off about 64% over the next few weeks. So most importantly, this is a historical area, one of the last few historical areas that we really have to work with, but yes, indeed, it is in there, and line up with all those other proverbial targets that we just kind of put in. I would say that this area is certainly a cautious area, and of course, could it be that Bitcoin plays out a greater pullback from where we are right now? Yes, but I would not even really be thinking about that at all, especially as long as we're above about 15,450, and if I want to be super conservative, I'd still be using the same breakdown point as yesterday, still below about 14,900. So we can move it up a little bit here, but essentially the same thing within about a $50 range. In fact, we can bring it up a little bit more if you want to be if you want to be just a little bit more aggressive than that. Of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Blah 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 blah. Okay, all right, let's get down and dirty into it then. So yes, again, to kind of reiterate my thoughts, I do look at this as more or less a formality here. I do look at it as the breakout as already kind of occurring yesterday, and we just came back down to test our more preliminary supports, and so far the reaction has been good. Remember that Bitcoin's playing with big, large numbers right now, so naturally speaking, these sort of floaty moves are going to be big numbers. We're talking about essentially like a $500, $600, or sorry, actually more like $700 move right here. Hey, stop that. Stop it, TradingView. But nothing really changed there. It's just coming back down to test the more preliminary support, as we just said. So I still run with that former bias and that former assumption. Let's check out what the lower term time frame momentum oscillators are saying right now, as we do look at 4-hour Stokes, looking like they are still nice and northwards, but losing a little of that momentum right now. So do start to insinuate a little bit of weakness right there. However, that is not a signal in and of itself, and I'd really only wait for an official cross to the downside before I do start to look at this as more or less problematic. Looking at 4-hour Jewel, do we see anything here? No, not really. Actually overshot the pink, so that is, as we spoke about earlier this week, unlikely to work out as a signal. If anything, I'd be looking for it on CMEs, which as it is right now, actually that is a little bit scary to come to think of it. That's actually pretty fucking scary to be come to think of it. But we'll get to that later. You know what? Just it's the Men in Black right now. You just hold up the little thing. You didn't see nothing, sir. But most importantly, we do see that historical volatility percentile on the 4-hour is really contracted right now. Came down all the way to about a 1 read yesterday. Yeah, actually did. And now just kind of hanging down in single digits still, which means that move extremely likely coming probably even today. That's kind of what we've been seeing this week. I'd be very surprised if Bitcoin's kind of still playing within this range, especially by tomorrow for Friday's closure. And I would actually think that very likely we do see the move probably even today. So looking at that and matching up with the 3 hour, I'm curious what we see here as well. 3 actually is coming down already, so it is precipitating. It is actually following that same trend line that we had in from yesterday here too. That is a little bit concerning. However, I look at this as more or less a long form consolidation on the 3 hour, which is kind of contradictory in and of itself, but overall, I would still be looking at the breakage of this range to likely get the next momentous move. That would be into the deeper 16,000s. Or if we break to the downside, we haven't really spoken about this yet, but of course, if Bitcoin does break to the downside, again, first major warning signal is below 15,450. That immediately makes me not look for this breakout to the upside to get any more further follow through. But still, I do think that it's more appropriate to be waiting for this area down here to really call a full-on breakage and resolution to the downside. And we'll just call this 14,950. So yes, I have moved it up about $100 from yesterday to today, because I do think that you can be a little, you can very likely be a little more aggressive with that. And I'd be looking for a slightly greater than $1,000 move back down here towards about 13.8 region, which I'll put a nice little blue box in right now, and hopefully my chart fucking saves, because that would be great. Although it's not too difficult to put together right now, at any rate. So with that in mind, yes, still looking at that as well. But and I forgot to talk about it at the beginning of this video. Jesus Christ, man, all over the place today for a nice little Thursday. But going over here to the 2 hour, what do we see as well? We do see actually 2 hour stocks coming back down. But again, I do look at this as potentially a little bit of a bullish reset. Especially with Bitcoin kind of just trading in the middle of this range right here, while momentum oscillators do come down a bit, while historical volatility percentile is in the process of trying to expand from an incredibly low level. We did see it actually get all the way down to a 0 read on yesterday, actually, the 11th. So yeah, that was yesterday, and now expanding from that region, as you would guess. And I imagine that this is going to carry on over into the 3 hour and the 4 hour, which have very, very similar signatures, and that likely does line up with a signal, or sorry, a big move today. I do think that we will see very likely the breakage out of it, at the very least this range today. And whether you're looking at it bullish or bearish, it is very likely to propel about $1,000 move, and potentially more, especially if it is to the downside. To the upside, like we said, a little bit more diabolical, because it's like I'm short-term bullish, but I am very cautious within that region at the same time. I do believe that Bitcoin's more or less likely to play out a greater pullback, either from this area that we're in right now or a little bit higher at the upper $16,000 level. Looking at the hourly, what do we see here too? We see basically all of those other charts essentially consolidated and being precipitated into. And so I do like this as well, seeing hourly stocks coming all the way down. And again, I look at this as essentially a bullish reset as Bitcoin holds the median of this range right now on the hourly. And more importantly, we do see that hourly RSI more or less neutral, and kind of allowing that to have a nice constructive behavior. Looking at hourly historical volatility percentile as well, you can see that it's essentially it's like looking at the 2 hour, but like a day in advance essentially, or sorry, like a day in the future perhaps. Yeah, it's better terminology there. And what do we see here? It's expanding very obviously. So I'd essentially be looking for that to pour on over into the 2 hour, which we're already seeing. If you look at it right here, yes indeed, we're already getting back above the moving average. I look at that to pour on over into the 3 hour next, and then the 4 hour of course, and that likely does beget our next big move. And if I do have to call it right now, I actually do look at this still likely to move onwards and upwards to the at the very least to the low $16,000 region, but very likely, but if we are going off the targets and whatnot, both historical and more intermediary right here, that would be the upper $16,000 region. So let's go over to the medium term time frame, see how they are looking as well. And what do you know, 12 hour just bouncing off the 10 simple, lovely. And what do we see on momentum oscillators? We do see 12 hour stocks. Ooh, this is what I was afraid of yesterday. So I don't have it on this chart. Let's go to this chart. All right, there we go. It's easy enough anyways. And we can draw this more as a regression here too. And more importantly, seeing a snake down around, especially at the critical zone like this, is a little bit of a signal of weakness here. And I say that with a grin on my face. It is a signal of weakness right there. However, I do want to see it actually break the trend line right here. And that likely is going to destroy this whole formation that we've been seeing, been baking ever since late September, by the way. And the reason why this is relevant is because we've basically seen all of the lows within this formation, all of these higher lows, I should say as well, be put along that trend line, going all the way back here towards basically about $10,000. And we got, I think it was like 10.2, 10.5. Then it was somewhere in like the low 11s right here. Then again in the 13,000, and then once again more recently. But as it does kind of lose its stepping here, I do think that this is more or less a ticking time bomb, and I do feel a little bit more. I do feel more convicted now that we very likely will see one of those greater pullbacks soon. again, either from where we are right now or maybe like $1,000 higher. But ultimately, I do think that Bitcoin's going to be playing out one of those likely 25 to 35% moves to the downside, and avoid the shit out of people coming into the new year most likely, and then set it up for an interesting first quarter in 2021 perhaps. But as it is right now, staying on the 12-hour, what do we see? We do see 12-hour RSI still looking okay. Actually, still do like this as long as it's in the bullish control zone. I do give the nod to the bulls here, so fair enough with that regard. And that obviously would supersede the Stokes as well, especially when Bitcoin is actually trending. I do not really care, or at least it's not that I don't care about the Stokes. It's just more so that they take on a different meaning. They take on a different interpretation, and I wouldn't really look at that as all that relevant to what's going on over here. So again, as long as it does hold that region, overall good. Starts to lose it, then that's probably an early warning signal that we're going to be coming back down below $15,000. Looking at historical volatility percentile here, we did actually see it come all the way up officially as of a couple of days ago. Now officially going into contraction zone as well. So again, ticking time bomb here with the fact that it is getting so damn red that it does make me believe that could we actually see that move come from where we are right now? Yes, it could very well happen, even though, again, I am biased towards that next move to the upside, just based off current structure and current price action. There are some warning signals here, no doubt about that. Looking at the daily as well, what do we see? Daily is still expanding, so that is good for the current momentum to carry onwards and upwards. We do see daily Stokes right here, looking like they do want to curl around right at the edge of the critical zone. Quite common stuff. You do see it quite often over here. You do see nice bounces around the critical zone. Boom, boom. Let's see, none right there. But typically your first test down after getting above it for the first time in a while, those ones do typically get picked up, and it looks like it does want to do something like that. By the way, going back all the way to 2016. 2017, our last official bull market, you do see several examples of that where it does test the critical zone and then bounces up again, and then the next test down, that's the one that typically does fail, and that's kind of what I'm looking for here. Bounce up a little bit more and then come back down, fail, we play out a bigger pullback, and set up for probably early 2021 if I had to guess. But looking at this right now, what else do we have to see on daily? We do see daily RSI more or less bullish here. I still look at this as constructive, consolidating along the top side of the bullish control zone. And while it is, while it likely does get another test back up, keep in mind that bearish divergence will be forming as long as we are below the 85 read right there on the last prior high. So that is going to take on a greater meaning. And of course, the daily jewel is firing off. It's not, these are not sell signals just yet, but they are firing off warning signals. And I'd imagine that the next time that we actually see this baby curl back around, it's going to give an official signal, and that's again going to be a pretty damn good way to get one of these major pullbacks. We have seen this, a very similar signature to this in the past. Anytime that the light blue gets above this region right here into the critical zone, especially in like the mid 80s, that typically does denote local highs, especially going back to even 2019 right here. You see several of them firing off on that run to $14,000. See the same thing in 2017 as well, in 2016. And if we were to just kind of like make a trend line where those typically do come in, we have seen a few that have been a little bit higher than where we are right now. Of course, this is referencing our current high right here, but just kind of relate it. The highs that we've ever even seen it is actually all the way up here at about a 90, just above 90 actually, and that is actually, we probably can even pull up a little bit more than that, seen as that was bit Mexican chart, and it doesn't have as much price action history. Looking at stamp over here, we do see the low 90s get hit several times in the 2015 to 2018 rally. However, it's yet again another cautionary signal here. So it's not a signal in and of itself just yet, but it's setting up, and it probably does set up, if I had to guess, into next week. I'm curious what CMEs look like here as well. Yeah, again, the secret is within the CMEs. As long as CMEs are not in any way, shape, or form firing off a signal right now, it's a big warning signal, and don't get me wrong, it is a big deal, but that is not an actionable sell signal as it is right now. It's very likely to curl back around, spend some time within this region, and then line up for a perfect one. That's likely going to be your next big major high. Looking at a 12-hour right here, what do we see? Yeah, same thing, except a little bit more aggressive here. You can see that it's probably going to line for a perfect one, maybe early next week, around the 19th or 8th, or sorry, yeah, the 19th. Hold on, that doesn't make sense. Wait, what? What in the fuck? That would be very bizarre. Okay, that actually does drag it out into next week, I suppose. So yeah, maybe a little bit later next week. Actually, not early next week. So fair enough. But it is in the cards there, and it is certainly forming, and it is, it is going to be a big deal if and when it does happen. But the question is right now, is it happening from where we are at currently? And I would still push back on that statement a little bit more. I do think that Bitcoin likely tries again to the upside here, and then we set something like that up. It's got to spend a little bit of time within this region, I imagine. Looking at the 2-day, what do we see as well? I still like the 2-day structure. I really like the 2-day close. We just had a backfill on 2-day open, which I believe that we spoke about yesterday, down to again 15,450, and so far so good. I'd be looking for this one to give one more swipe onto the upside. That's again, that's pretty much the crux of the message right now. 2-day Stokes still nice and up and at 'em. Again though, anytime that they do get into this region, typically don't see it hang around there for too much longer. But yes, it can get a little bit higher there, of course, historically speaking. And same thing on 2-day Jewel. It's firing off big warning signals. It's not a signal in and of itself, but it's getting close. It's certainly sounding the alarm bells relatively soon here. 2-day RSI, what do we see? A little bit of loss of momentum. But I don't have actually too much to make out of this that hasn't already been said on the daily. And then I want to check out the 3-day as well, which I believe is closing tonight. And yeah, it's going to be closing tomorrow night, actually. So this one's going to be a big one. Let's go over here to the secondary charts right now, and let's actually cover up the 3-day immediately. So what I'd be looking at right now is the 3-day and weekly Bollinger Bands. Both of them actually going to be closing tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So keep an eye on this. As long as we're closing both the 3-day and the weekly above the topside Bollinger Band, I still look at this as essentially in the process of trending, and those deeper $16,000 targets are still likely to be hit. Now, of course, again, this one is not closing today. Neither is weekly. They both close tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. For CMEs, and if we are trading above the topside Bollinger Band, like I said, I would keep those deeper targets. But where is the topside Bollinger Band right now? Well, on the 3-day, it is 15,650. This is on spot, by the way. We should actually go to CMEs right here. On CMEs, it is 15,500. That's actually quite interesting, as it is a little bit lower. Actually, very interesting, in fact. Looking at the weekly, what do we see here as well? Weekly is going to be 15,100-ish region. So, as it is right now, Bitcoin obviously exceeding both those levels for CMEs. And if it does hold into tomorrow, then yes, that'd be another good signal that we very likely do see this take another leg up. And going back to spot price action here, I'm just curious what the differential is. Okay, on the weekly, very, very similar. 15,050 is what it's showing right now. And on the 3-day, I believe it was, 15,650. So it's actually significantly different on the 3-day from comparing both spot and CMEs. Again, if I do have to call it right now, it looks like it wants to give another try to the upside. Looking at momentum oscillators here on the secondary chart as well, I do think that it likely gets one more drive, just looking at this. But divergence likely is starting to, or very likely will occur, extremely likely will occur on the next drive. If we're looking at DMI, I'm curious what the daily looks like here as well. ADX is actually loosening its grip right now as the DMI Plus does come back down around the threshold. Not quite there just yet. Typically do see a little bit of counter trend pressure around this region, however, so I would be looking at that as potential counter signal there. What else do we see? We do see daily MACD, a little bit losing its momentum there as well. More importantly, though, I don't look at just like a standard cross as anything that means anything without context. It needs to come alongside a breakage of a momentous level, or alongside some sort of a volatility metric that actually will give it some meaning. Otherwise, it's just otherwise people would just trade the fucking MACD and say, we have across the upside bullish, or we have across to the downside red dildos, baby. It's like, no, if that worked, everyone would do it and we'd all be rich as fuck. And that's apparently not the result, unfortunately. I'm curious what the 12-hour says here as well. Yeah, 12-hour just bounce upon the 10 simple, and again, the top side of the Bollinger Bands on the 12-hour is around the 1.414 fib. Which was about 16,300-ish region. So I do have a bit of a cautionary area right there. Looking at 12-hour MACD is also very interesting here as well. And here's probably what I'd put the most weight on the next signal for a move into the deeper $16,000 region. And that would be this. I want to see the next 12-hour dildo close anywhere above the last prior high, which was 15,800-ish region. Anywhere above there, even where we are right now at 15,720 would probably be be fine by me or fine as well. And then I want to see MACD twist again back onto the upside. So breaking a momentous level plus resolving what would be an ascending triangle, which is a bullish reaccumulation formation, which has a greater percentage chance to actually break out to the upside than the downside. But of course, it is only just a percentage chance now, isn't it? And then yes, that would very likely be good enough to get Bitcoin at the very least up to the top side of this Trilogy band right here, which again is about, God damn it, can't see it. 14, yeah, or sorry, actually it's more like 16.5, and will expand over time as well. So that likely does beget the topside target wherever it comes in around. Obviously, it's going to change with each and every passing dildo, but for right now, it does look like, well, does look like it's going to be in line. So everything is kind of aligning right now. And also, what I want to do see is I want to see DMI plus, which is currently dominant right now, but I want to see the ADX actually start to strengthen with it as it does turn up at the same time. If all of those three things are met, I'd very likely be looking for that next move into the deeper $16,000 region, maybe even into low 17, with particular interest on about 16.3, we'll call it, at around that 1.414 extension once again. So yes, putting all the puzzle pieces together, I'm still more or less bullish here on the short-term time frames, but I do feel like it is time to be cautious. The reason why I say that is based a lot off of what we spoke about yesterday on Elliot's channel. I need to take a sip of this water, man. Fucking hell. I'm like really thirsty. I ate carbs for like the first time in, I don't know, it has to be maybe even like a year now. I ate carbs yesterday, and ever since then I've just been drinking water like a motherfucker. It's been insane. Just a hose been inserted into my mouth, and take that as you will. It's actually pretty weird. Definitely suggest trying it if you like a little bit of self-masochism or whatever that word is. Anyways, yes, so the reason, a few reasons why I'm looking for kind of a local high within that region that we haven't already spoken about today, which was based off the fib extensions, which was based off the measure move, which was based off just your historical fuckery area, if you want to call it that, right around here as well. Well, we do have a very specific signature that we do look at on the weekly Trilogy bands right here that has begun a lot of Bitcoin's momentous moves. Anytime that we do see a weekly closure above the topside Trilogy band, that is typically the times when you are in the process of trending and putting in those like nice big moves. For example, something similar to what we have back on over here. Bitcoin gets its first closure above and then plays out about a 50% move before getting its next closure below, and then does the same thing just a couple weeks later and plays out another like 50% move here as well, or actually not 50% but 36% on that one. We have several examples in 2015 to 2018 here as well, and we'll go through a few of them, although I don't want to do all of them, but this one right here, about first pop 56%, not bad. Second one right here, that one's more like 27%, pretty damn good. This one over here, another 50% move to the upside, not bad at all. Then we get this signature right here, another, actually, sorry, it's not exact. Let's actually get this one from right there. Yeah, we got about a 35.5% move right there as well. If we do see this next one right here, this one's a little bit more muted, more so around 15 to 20% move. Then we get this one right here, makes up for it. It's a 100% move almost to the upside, not bad. Then we get this baby right here, another 32% move to the upside. And you basically get where I'm going with this. We can kind of come up with like an average of what those signals do produce. Doesn't mean that it's always going to work out like that, and you do see that there certainly are outliers in the form of like 100% moves or 50% moves, but for the most part, it's somewhere between about 25 and 35% move. And where are we right now after getting that prior signal? Well, let's see. Let's measure it out. Right now, we're about 25% up from that signal given, and I'm just curious what it'd look like if Bitcoin head up all the way to that next target, right around about $17,000. That would be just above 33% actually. So that's well within historical kind of like average of what we've seen based upon that. And then on top of that, where do we typically see Bitcoin bottom out on these more momentous drives, especially on the weekly for the longer term plays? Well, I was kind of postulating this as well. Just a very simple way of doing this. It might not be the most precise way, but it's a pretty damn good way just to get a decent idea of what Bitcoin does historically. And that's looking at the weekly 21 exponential average right here, of which anytime that Bitcoin is above it and it has a positive slope, those are your bull markets. And Bitcoin loves to base upon the 21 during those times, and those end up being phenomenal buys. I mean, keeps you long all the way from here to here, keeps you short, works to the downside as well, and keeps you short and tells you about the bull trap in 2014. Does the same thing in 2015 all the way to 2018 right here, more recently in 2019, and more recently in 2020. And as you can see, does come back down and test it on all of those bullish dumps, which, by the way, not only do the pumps have a little bit of a signature to them, but so do the dumps as well. You can see that this one over here, this first one about 25%. This one over here about 30%. If we're going off closures, if we're going off of wicks, quite a bit more. This one over here, another 32.25%. This one over here, another 33.25%. This one over here, another 37%. You get where I'm going with this. We don't need to do all of them, and if you do want to look at all of them, then I think I did it over this weekend, so fair enough. And as it is right now, where's the 21 exponential moving average hanging around? It's actually around about almost $12,000 and rising rather rapidly by the tune of about about $400 every week. At least that was the differential between last week and this week, which is quite significant. More importantly, though, if we were to maybe just shave off the average of that, let's just call it like 30%, where would that put Bitcoin down around if we were to meet that $17,000 target or so? Well, what do you know? That put us right down around the 21 exponential moving average right here. And of course, this isn't just relevant for those two things. It's also relevant for structure on this price action. You see basically a 3-year long consolidation around this region, which I'll represent by this massive blue box territory. And the way that I look at that is that, if Bitcoin does want to come back down and retest it, that's completely fine. That is your breakout level. And yes, they are pretty damn, it's pretty damn common to see that, areas like that retested. Also not 0.5 fib here as well, if you're looking at this as a bullish retracement. So, just playing fib by fib here, if the bot's now is going to be selling the 236, what are they typically going to be targeting? Well, either the 618 or the 0.5. 618 is down around 9,600. Could be possible, to get a very nasty wick down around there. Not necessarily looking for it, but the 0.5 a lot more statistically likely, especially from a level like this. So fair enough. And it is interesting how a lot of those percentages do match up with each other. Again, more so experimental ideas right there, but at the end of the day, just the general things that I was speaking about at the beginning of this video is kind of what I'd be mostly focused on. And what do you know? Bitcoin's back around that blue box territory once again. Craziness. Fucking craziness. And let's see, I'm already 31 minutes into this video. Jesus Christ, man. Let's go over some traditional marks right now. Let's go back to NASDAQ. I think we were looking for a little bit of upside movement on NASDAQ yesterday to 11,850. And what are we trading right now? 11,830. Not bad. And we actually overshot that target yesterday all the way to 11,900. Fair enough. Not bad. I'd be looking for this one to essentially pull a Bitcoin here and move back up towards probably 12,000, probably 12,000 to be quite honest with you. Short term, does it come down a little bit more? Maybe yes. I don't really have a strong opinion on that one, but I'd mostly be focused on the weekly close right now because we've had most of our easy moves already happen in this one for this week, I do believe, which I feel quite good about. But yes, I do think that this one likely does come back around 12,000 bucks, and then I want to see the weekly closure. What about SPY futures? I'd imagine it's more or less the same thing. No, it's actually not more or less the same thing. We did call for new all-time highs this week. We got that. I don't really have new things to say about this one. Generally speaking, I'd be looking for it to follow in Nas's footstep, but like Nas, the stock, not the singer. Is he a singer or is he a rapper? Who knows? Doesn't matter. But more importantly, right here, this one actually does show a lot more potential downside. And if it does want to move to the downside, I would be looking for a move back down to about 3480-ish region to 3450-ish region. I'd feel a lot less confident on this one. In fact, I'd prefer to make no call on this one. Nasdaq's the one that I feel a lot better about. So fair enough there. What about the big three right here? What about Tesla? Flip-flopping around a bit. What do we see on the daily? Probably does play another short-term move to the upside. We did hit our $400 target to the downside. Yeah, I'd be looking for a little bit of a pop back up, maybe around like 425 or 430. Apple, what do we see here? Ooh, this one's popping back up nicely as well. I'd be looking for this one to pop back up towards 122 short-term, and probably does extended more medium and long-term. But I want to see the weekly closure after that. Nope, we already looked at Tesla. What about Microsoft? My favorite one. This one's actually under a lot more pressure, to be fair. I'd still give it the nod here for a bounce back up to about maybe 220-ish region, and then come back to it on the next weekly. So let's go over some more altcoins. See what links up to over here. Link, what are you doing, sir? What are you doing? Still kind of trading sideways, but I still do look for this one to essentially resolve itself to the upside. I think that the closure that we got last week was the big tell, and ultimately going to be going back up to $15 and probably $16 beyond. Short term though, what do I look at on this? It's going to do whatever Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin wants to move back up here, I'd be looking for a short-term move back up towards $13.50. But again, I'm not as confident on a chart like this as I am on some of the other ones that we're looking at. I don't think it's as obvious. Now it is in an uptrend right now on the 4 hour, so not bad, but I really want to see something a little bit more obvious here. That I think we'll have to wait for the weekly to really solidify itself. But yes, the higher time time frames do still remain overall bullish, and I would be looking for them to just kind of chug their way alongwards and upwards for the time being, especially as long as Bitcoin holds its composure above 15,450. Moving on, what do we got? I think the other one that I want to check out is Mr. Buterol, perhaps. And where are you, Mr. Buterol? There you are, 460. Love it. And I'd still essentially be looking for this one on a weekly to probably reapproach somewhere around like $500. I mean, we got pretty damn close here. 482. Maybe not that close. Let's see what the daily looks like right now. Very similar to Bitcoin. Nice constructive movement at the top side of the range. I'm looking for this one, yes, to move upwards and onwards here. I'm bullish on this as long as, especially as long as it's closing dailies above 450. I see no reason to be bearish on this. Even as long as it's above like 435, I'm pretty damn bullish on this. I mean, I feel pretty good about this, about this one this week. Came down to our levels at 430, bounced off there, and I essentially remain with my weekly targets of 500 and probably 530 after that. Short term, gonna follow whatever Bitcoin does. Looks more or less the same on as it on the short term time frames. And I think this would be perhaps a good time to go back to Bitcoin. I don't want to make this video too long, and let's make it nice and good. Let's wrap this bitch up, baby. And more or less same things that we've been looking at for the last couple days here, but more and more mature within this formation. I want to once again put the highlight on historical volatility percentile right here, really starting to expand from incredibly low areas on the 4, 3, 2, and an hourly right here. Obviously, all being led up by the shorter term timeframes, which is what you would expect as momentum does start to turn back up on the short term timeframes here too. We do see hourly Stokes looks like they want to actually reject the bearish controls and then cross back up, and I look for that to lead into the 2 hour, 3 hour, and 4 hour. And I'd essentially remain with my same targets that I had of yesterday. Any sort of I'm basically just biased to the upside right here, and I'd remain with that bias as long as we're above about 15,450. In this case, I don't think that you need a closure below 15,450. If Bitcoin comes back down below 15,450, this whole idea will get destroyed, at least in the short term for now, and I'd be likely looking for an extension down to about $15,000 base and a bounce there. But that is the next sort of critical area, a little bit below there actually, to be fair, 14,950. Any sort of a 2 hour or 4 hour dildo closure below there, I'd be targeting a little bit more than $1,000 move to the downside towards about 13,800-ish region. Now, again, I'm not necessarily looking for that to happen. I do think that Bitcoin more or less just kind of puts in a little bit of time going sideways here and eventually works its way upwards and onwards. There's a couple of areas of interest to the upside. The 1 spot 414 is your traditional trappy trap area, but looking at the 2 spot extension and also the measure move off of this ascending triangle formation, would suggest deeper into the $16,000 region, and that's at the point where I do have major caution for price action and start to really look for areas to potentially hedge. We'll call it. Yes, that's what we'll call it today. And of course, this is a historical area as well, coming in all the way back from our major massive bull trap and first lower high from the last bull market in 2018 as well. So with all of that in mind, I would like to wish you the best once again. Take care, and until next time.